Welcome to today's webinar, MICIP, a Systems Approach. My name is Ben Borkel. I'm the MICIP lead for professional learning, and with me today is Dr. Terry Nugent, the MICIP lead. By way of introduction, prior to developing MICIP, the planning team did extensive research about what was working, what was not working, and why we were not getting the results we wanted as a result of our continuous improvement efforts. One thing we discovered is that while there were many actions being taken, frequently the systems to support those actions were either not in place or were not as strong as they needed to be. We also found that districts and schools were overwhelmed by the number of goals, strategies, and activities in their plans, and found that they were not able to monitor and adjust their plans to the extent needed. As a result, plans were also not being implemented to the level of fidelity needed, and the results were not being realized. We're here today to talk about how focusing on systems in continuous improvement might address both of these issues and potentially bring about better results, while also making plans more manageable. Our outcomes today are those that you see on the slide. To understand the MDE definition and characteristics of systems, to understand the systems and subsystems represented in MICIP, to understand that systems are foundational to both academic and non-academic goals, and to identify examples and benefits of systems goals. We'd like to begin the conversation by asking you to watch this video from the statewide field team that asks the question, why systems? As you're watching, think about what information you are taking away from this video.
Over the last decade, one of the biggest focus areas for educational leaders has been a focus on systems. Why systems? Why wouldn't we just focus on math strategies or literacy, or something related to what schools do? Why would we focus on systems? Because systems are not what we do, but rather how we do what we do. Think about some effort your school has been involved in that seemed like a good idea, but didn't achieve what you or your school district wanted it to. Was it because it was a bad idea? Probably not, and when we think about the many efforts that have been implemented in our schools to support literacy or math skills, to improve behavior, or even to help kids develop stronger social skills and relationships, most likely these efforts came from research-based programs that had a track record of success. This is generally true of most such efforts in our schools over the last 2 decades. These programs weren't bad ideas. In fact, they were likely good ideas and probably fit a need for your students. Most often, these efforts did not reach their potential because the people who needed to implement them didn't have the tools or training to implement the programs effectively. Or maybe they had the training, but staff turnover or incomplete communication left some people out of the loop. These people may not have known what they needed to do to implement the program. As is the case in many schools, maybe everyone went off doing what they thought they were supposed to do, but no one monitored this. The people who thought they were doing what they needed didn't receive feedback to change their practice when things went awry. Or maybe everyone started doing what they needed to, but when some students or teachers struggled with the change, people resorted to their previous practices or started modifying the program in ways that were not intended. All of these examples can disrupt the effective implementation of a very good idea or program. Poor results from these situations may not necessarily be the result of what the program is supposed to do, but more about how the program was carried out. When we talk about systems in schools, we can define them as a series of interdependent and aligned processes and people working together toward a common goal to bring desired results. Specifically, what systems in schools often struggle with from this definition is with the aligned processes and people working together. If we don't address the details about how they work together and how the processes should be implemented, we can end up with an ineffective system. This is why we have created this website to focus on systems. No matter what you are trying to implement in your schools, how these happen is a result of your systems. And if your systems are not designed to succeed, you are not going to get the outcomes you want. For more information about how you can address your systems, check out the other resources and online learning materials on our site, MICIPsupport.com.
We'd also like you to watch this video, What Makes Systems Work, that focuses on the 5 qualities of systems noted on this slide.
If systems are critical to doing our work in schools, what is it about the systems that make them work? We are going to look at 5 qualities of systems that help us to reach our goals with any program or initiative we want to implement in schools. It is important to think about what a system actually is, especially in the context of schools. When we think about these kinds of systems that involve people, commonly known as organizational systems, we can define a system as a series of interdependent and aligned processes and people working together toward a common goal to bring desired results. This definition highlights the first aspects of systems to look at. Let's start with the first part of our definition, a series of interdependent and aligned processes and people. First, this tells us about the things in our system, the processes that people engage in, and the people themselves. Any organizational system will involve people and the processes or work that they do. Any system we design for our schools to implement a particular program needs to pay attention to the different people in the system and the work that we expect them to engage in. The second quality of systems is interdependent and aligned. When we say interdependent, we know that the people and processes are connected. When we think about the examples of organizational systems that we know about, it is likely that different people have different processes that they need to engage in, but some of these depend on others to happen first. Let's look at a simple example using the postal system to think about this. Without getting too caught up in the details of it, we know we have at least 3 basic groups of people in our postal system. We have mail carriers who pick up and deliver each person's mail. We have sorters who go through all the mail that is brought in and sort through where it needs to go. And we have transporters who carry large batches of mail from each post office to regional mail sorting facilities. These 3 processes and the people who do them all depend on each other to do the right thing in their role. If a sorter does not do the sorting well, they might end up giving the mail carriers mail for people who are not on their mail carrying route. This is why a good system has people and processes that are interdependent and aligned. If not aligned, you might have the flow of mail going to the wrong people at the wrong time. For the third quality of systems that make them work, we can simply look to the other part of the definition for systems, working together toward a common goal to bring desired results. This implies that there is an actual agreement on the goal and what it would look like, either in terms of some measure or a behavior we could easily observe. Agreement on the goals would be developed by a group with a range of perspectives, and if not developed by the group, there is at least an agreement on the goal by those who are participating in the system. This is critical because any individual needs to see purpose in their effort, and if you cannot see an end goal for the work you are doing, you are less likely to work on the details of your own role in the system. For the fourth quality of systems, we will look at the timing of the work being done within the system and how we monitor the work taking place in the system. If we have a common goal for our system, we should be regularly checking on our progress toward that goal to make sure we are on track to achieve it. To ensure that our systems are functioning the way they are intended, we need to gather information about both how we do the work and whether we are meeting our goals. We are monitoring progress and making decisions based upon the information we gather. Ideally, we want to monitor our implementation regularly so that we can make minor adjustments when we get off track from meeting our goals. If the postal system only checked progress once a year, whether it was delivering mail to the right address, We could be mistakenly delivering all of Muskegon's mail to Marquette and vice versa until we literally have truckloads of mail that need to be brought to their correct destination. So, the fourth quality of strong organizational systems is collecting information and data in short term cycles in order to gauge progress and make adjustments to implementation as the system is running. This brings us to our fifth and final quality, which specifically deals with the connections between individual people and the data gathered while the systems are being implemented. This is about communication and feedback. This goes hand in hand with the previous quality of monitoring the work and connections of the system. It takes it one step further to ensure that people within the system are getting the information they need, along with feedback on how that information could lead to changes and actions that can improve outcomes. In a high performing system, the communication flows back and forth to ensure that people not only understand what they need to do, but also build trust among members of the team of people working within the system. While many of the other qualities of strong systems are a little more mechanical or technical in nature, this last quality reminds us that the people within our system also have individual motivations, concerns, and emotions. Having consistent means of communication with honest dialogue and suggestions that use data and build the connections between people help build trust and collective efficacy in the work that everyone is doing. For more information about how you can address your systems, check out the other resources and online learning materials on our site, MICIStemsupport.com.
So to summarize, on this slide, we again see the MDE definition of systems, as well as an emphasis on the key phrases, interdependent and aligned toward a common goal, reminding us that processes and people cannot function at their highest levels without each other, and they must be focused on the same thing, with everyone clearly understanding the goal. If you don't know where to begin the conversation around systems, here are some things to consider. Does the district have a definition of or framework for systems? Does it have data to show to what extent systems are in place and how effective they are? Whose perspectives are represented on the continuous improvement team? Do they represent the various systems needed to support continuous improvement work? As you think about the amount of continuous improvement you have experienced in your setting in the recent past, how might the presence or lack of systems have impacted those results? There are a number of systems frameworks and aligned assessment tools available to districts in Michigan, including the District Improvement Framework, the Whole Child, the Blueprint, the MTSS Practice Profile, and for districts that are Advanced Ed Cognia accredited, the Advanced Ed Cognia Diagnostics. As you think about your district, what framework or frameworks, if any, do you use? In MICIP, users are asked to identify their primary focus area of inquiry and of their data story: academic, non-academic, or systems. Systems are foundational to both the academic and non-academic, and they are also critical in and by themselves. When we talk about building systems in MICIP, we refer to two ideas: building a system as a goal and building systems to support another goal. We will spend a few minutes looking at each. On this slide, you see several examples of building a system as the goal. Notice in the first couple of examples that we include ideas about what such a system might include. Including such ideas may help with developing the rest of the plan. Our examples include building an assessment system, a curriculum instruction and assessment system, student support system, MTSS framework or system, and a facilities management plan or system. Since 2023-2024 plans were previously in assist, it must be entered into the MICIP platform. We strongly recommend that before simply transferring them into MICIP, a district consider whether the plans are still relevant or if they need to be revised or abandoned. If the plans are still relevant and need to be continued, one of the conversations is whether some of them might be combined into system goals. This slide gives some examples of combining individual goals into systems goals. For example, if a district currently has multiple goals, each around individual content areas, might they be combined into a curriculum and instruction goal or an MTSS goal? If a district currently has goals in several areas regarding supporting students, might they be combined into a student support goal? Let's look at a specific example of building a system as a goal, that of installing an assessment system. The last step before identifying a goal is to identify a challenge statement. In MICIP, we recommend using a three-part if, then, so that logic model to identify the challenge. You see an example of such a statement on this slide. The data story has identified that student achievement is lagging compared to where it needs to be, and a root cause is that the district does not have a good assessment system that helps students, staff, and parents be able to identify current learning as well as future learning. In this case, the district has decided to install or implement an assessment system as a goal. Once a goal is established, it also needs interim and end targets. Note how the interim and end targets are designed to address the various components of the challenge statement. Notice also that the "so that" is almost always related to an impact on students. Following the identification of targets, strategies and activities, including monitoring, need to be identified that will allow the district to achieve its targets. This slide illustrates the various sub-focus areas under academics. Notice the two key questions on the slide, no matter your sub-area of focus. If you currently have goals in these individual areas, how might they be combined into a systems goal? This slide illustrates the various sub-focus areas under non-academics. Note the two key questions on the slide. If you currently have goals in these individual areas, how might they be combined into a systems goal? The second way to address systems is to build a system to support a goal. Suppose the district goal primarily addresses an academic or non-academic area, like the example on this slide. In this case, we need to ask the question regarding which systems need to be in place to support a high-quality literacy program. For example, we need effective curriculum and instruction systems, assessment and data systems, and student support systems. For the purpose of illustration, let's again focus on the need for an assessment and data system. If we haven't already gathered data about the effectiveness of our assessment and data system using one of the system frameworks, we need to do that first, since that data will help determine next steps. Suppose the data shows that we don't have an effective assessment and data system in any area. That might call for addressing such a system through a separate goal, as illustrated by the previous example. However, if we find that the lack of a quality assessment or data system is particular to literacy, we may be able to simply address that as a task. The graphic on the slide shows us what that looks like in MICIP. For practical purposes, a task is treated just like an interim target, with a descriptor, a due date, an owner, and a measure. This slide illustrates the various sub-focus areas under systems. What academic or non-academic areas on which you are currently focusing as separate goals might be combined into one of these areas? Some of you might be part of or supporting districts with schools identified for additional supports. This slide is intended to clarify how systems goals can be addressed in the various categories of districts and schools. Number 1, districts without schools identified. These districts may write any number of systems, academic, or non-academic goals. Category 2, partnership districts with schools identified for CSI in partnership status. These schools must explore the 5 areas of inquiry indicated on the slide, and they must have 3 goals that address the data. The goals may be systems goals, academic goals, or non-academic goals, and they must have interim and end targets or benchmarks related to math and reading. Thirdly, partnership districts with schools identified for CSI, ATS, or TSI, but not in partnership status. These are districts that have schools not in partnership status as well as those in partnership status. Those schools not in partnership status must explore the 2 areas of inquiry indicated on the slide, but may have any number of goals, systems, academic, or non-academic, that address their data. And fourth, districts with schools identified for CSI, ATS, or TSI, but not identified for partnership status. Those schools must explore the 2 areas of inquiry indicated on the slide, but may have any number of goals, systems, academic, or non-academic, that address their data. If you have questions, please contact your PAL, your Coordinated Supports Point of Contact, or your ISD. Over the past year, MICIP has been working hard to integrate district strategic planning with continuous improvement planning. Strategic planning is a process that defines a district's vision and direction, while continuous improvement planning identifies the plan for achieving a district's vision. While there are a variety of models for strategic planning, this model is based on one used by the Michigan Association of School Boards, or MASB. Focusing on systems goals supports using the platform for strategic planning. The MASB process calls for the district to explore 5 different strategic goal areas that can be aligned to the MICIP areas of inquiry: academics and programs, learning environment and culture, personnel and leadership, communications and community engagement, and operations. These areas primarily represent different systems for which the district is responsible. Based on the strengths and concerns identified through data, those areas that are the greatest challenge then get taken through the MICIP assessed needs and planning processes. Since the district is responsible for the strategic plan, and therefore primarily responsible for building and supporting the systems that enable the work to be done by schools, having systems goals allows the strategic planning and continuous improvement processes, as well as aligning the work done by the district and the schools. So what are some benefits of systems goals? This slide identifies a few of them. First, having goals focused on systems simplifies the district continuous improvement portfolio by having fewer plans. Second, focusing on systems goals encourages a greater variety of data in a data story, as well as in interim and end targets. And because there are fewer goals, the monitoring process is also simplified. What other benefits might you see in focusing continuous improvement plans on systems? In closing, let's review the learning outcomes for today. To what extent were these realized for you? Note at the bottom of this slide a professional learning bite regarding systems that is already on the MICIP website. Thank you for attending this presentation. If you need support for your work around MICIP, please contact any of us on this screen.